Okay, so now we can use this crevice here for the other major seam. Again, it's a matter of a bit of experimenting, just to see where is the best place to position the UV seams. Now this part here, I guess it will be, we have some ambient occlusion there because it's pretty much inset in the rock, so the seam won't be that visible. And I'll just use this extruded shape of the rock to put the other seam around it. Okay, something like this. Just make sure that all your seams are connected all the way and you're not missing, for example, like this seam, because when you start pelting the UV islands, they won't pelt because they will be missing UV edge seam right here. So yeah, just make sure that at the end you have all your edges highlighted in blue. Okay, so now when I think about this, I think we can do without this edge. We'll just pelt it and see what will happen. Now this part here, we should also separate it because yeah, it will create some issues when we start pelting this part of the rock. Now, as you can see, at some parts it can get really tricky with a small object like that. So, yeah, I advise you, if you're using a poly cube in ZBrush, just you can increase its size a bit. That will help you to see it easier inside Max. Okay, so this one, to pelt properly, needs just along the edge a few edges highlighted. I think that should be enough for it to pelt properly. And okay, so what else? Probably we need one here. Now that is something that actually ZeroMesher it's better at, because it will create a much cleaner and quad-based topology. So yeah, sometimes it's easier to make UV seams on meshes that you used ZeroMesher for the creating of the low poly objects. But yeah, at this case, I think using decimation master justified because it really helped preserve the silhouette of the rock better. So now I think we can just cut here a bit. And okay, maybe we'll have to make some more tweaks, but for now let's just try and see what will happen. So with all these edges highlighted, just make sure that you don't have any accidentally pressed blue edge anywhere on your mesh. That's really important, because if you have even a single one here and you start to pelt this UV island, nothing will happen. Okay, I'll just add this here to help this part pelts a little better. So when you're done with your UV seams, all you need to do is go and press this button here, convert edge selection to seams. Okay, so now go to face selection mode, press on, for example, on this UV I want just press and select one poly, and press this button here, expand face selection to seams. That will select all of the triangles inside this UV island. So that is really helpful, because if you didn't made properly your UV seams and there's a missing one, the whole mesh will become red, because there will be a missing seam here to keep this UV island separate. So with this selected, just press this icon here, the pelt map, and without touching anything, just click start pelt, click again to stop it, and press the commit button. So now all you need to do is go to tools, and under the relax, I like to switch it from relax by edge angles to relax by face angles, and just press start relax. Okay, I think that's good enough. Just move these selected faces on the side, so you can easily select the other ones. It's easier to keep the scene organized before we finally pack the whole UVs into these coordinates here. So let's continue. Let's select this one. Again, press this button to select the whole island. Press again, pelt. Let's select the top part of the rock. Okay, so far so good. All the UV islands are pelting pretty nice. Okay, so if you lost track at which islands you selected and which doesn't, you can very easily just click here on the unpelted UVs, and on the viewport you get this selected triangle here. So there's only this one left. Alright, so now we have to make sure that our UVs are actually good. So click here on this button, it will get your material editor. If by default you get this mode, and if you're not used to it, like for example, I prefer the compact mode, you can switch back to the compact mode by just going here and press this button. I prefer this one for operations like this, because it's more clean and organized. So just select one material, and here go to the diffuse slot, click on this button and select the checker texture, and here on the tiling just press something like 8 by 8. Then just drag and drop the material and press this button here, show shaded material in viewport. And now you can actually see that we have uniform squares everywhere. For example, if the UVs were pelted really bad, these squares right here would be really stretched, and they won't look really nice. So yeah, so far it's I think the UVs are really good with this prop. All we need now is to pack all these UVs inside this window here. This marks the texture space that it's allowed when you bake normal maps. So if you have any UVs of your object outside this zone here with the checker, you won't get any UV information baked on this part of the prop that is outside these boundaries. So it's really important to make sure that all your UVs are inside this and are not intersecting with one another. So usually it's a good idea to have the same ratio of the UV size, but for example, if the player inside the game won't go that often on the top of the cliff, you can make this UV island smaller and get more space for this one. But for now, I guess we'll try to make it more uniform. So what we need to do is just start adjusting these islands. The trick is to get as much UVs here without intersecting with each other, because the bigger the UVs here are, the more detailed your texture will be. And for this rock, I'm planning to bake really high-res texture, something like 4K. Yeah, as you know, the next-gen consoles already came out and they have 8 GB of RAM, and that is really important when making game environment, because that means that the game developers won't be so constrained when it comes to texture size in games. So 4K won't sound so huge like it sounds for like it sounded 1 or 2 years ago. Okay, so you just have to decide which part of the rock you want to be more detailed. Okay, so if you don't want to spend manually time to place this, you can always just go to mapping and just press flatten mapping, and it will get these UVs, but it will separate them in a really bad way, so it's not a good idea. Probably the better idea is from tools to use the pack UV and decrease the padding to 0.01 and just press OK, and you see that right now they're fit inside this space, but there's too much free space around them, and that's not very good. So if you want to select again the whole UV island here, just select one face and again click this button here. Now this part of the rock is not so important, so I'm gonna scale it a bit. You can scale by just, well, these UVs are selected, just press freeform mode here, and that will allow you, while pressing Ctrl and holding, to scale and retain the same proportions of the UVs. If you don't hold Ctrl, you just start deforming the UVs, and sometimes that could lead to a lot of problems. So yeah, the proper packing of UVs could requires a bit of time if you want to make as much as possible from your UV layouts, but it's worth it because it takes more time, but later you have a lot more texture space for the actual textures. Okay, so by clicking here you can mirror your UVs, and if you click and hold and release the mouse button while on the lower icon, you flip them vertically. Okay, I'll scale this island a bit because it's too large right now. Alright. Oh, we forgot this one. So this part of the rock is not that big, so you can really scale this UV island. And okay, if we arrange this one, okay, actually I will switch the positions of these two UV islands. This one will go here. Just make sure that your UV islands doesn't intersect with one another. And I'll just place this one here. So again, it's a nice idea to look really closely between the separate UV islands just to make sure that they're not intersecting. Okay, this one is really close, so I'm going to scale this a bit. Later you should check. Okay, this one is pretty close to the border, but yeah, I don't think this will cause any problem. Alright, let's just check again, and yeah, I think we're ready. So once you're ready with the UV layout, all you need to do is click here on the unwrap and collapse the modifier. Then yeah, and one very important thing, don't if you're having trouble with this small object here, don't scale it up, because later if the high poly and the low poly are sized differently, it won't bake any information on the low poly. Just keep it this way, and then we'll scale them up inside XNormal. So with your prop centered in the center of the scene, like we exported it from the ZBrush, just go again in this main button, go to export, hold on a bit, and click on export selected. So I like to I'll still keep the original low poly mesh, but I'll export this one as LP UV. So this way I'll know that this low poly mesh has UV information. Okay, so in the next video we'll bake the maps inside XNormal.